A hoax is probably the most important thing that we can expose around here. I mean, when you think about a hoax, you really get an insight into two kinds of people during a hoax. One, who is actually telling the lie to talk about some level of white racism and black victimization that flat out isn't true. And we see a lot of them. We're going to see a lot of them here. But whenever you tell that kind of lie, you know, every lie contains one piece of truth. And in this case, when you tell a lie about white racism and black victimization, what you're really saying is there's not enough of it out there for me to find without flat out lying about it. You know, that is what it is. People lie about stuff. But to me, even more revealing than the lie are people who are so eager to believe the lie because that's the way they see the world. They're ready to jump on any fairy tale whatsoever that will confirm their view of the world. People call that confirmation bias. It's a charge that the clowns and their liberal enablers throw at us on this channel, on this podcast, in my books and articles. But that's why we spend so much time just doing stories that are all kind of self-contained. There's the video, there's the number, so this happened. There's no doubt about that. This happened and that's part of a pattern. There's no doubt about that. I'm not asking anybody to believe anything. No, I'm challenging people to challenge every single word, every single video, every single podcast we do. Challenge it. Come back and say, oh, Colin, white people do that all the time, Colin. Well, that's what people say. But when you ask them for proof of it, they'll give you something that happened 6 months, 6 years, 6 lifetimes ago. And in between the time of their incident and the present, you can drive a bus through that with all the new examples of black violence wildly out of proportion that we document here. And so we really expose the inner life, the inner thoughts, the inner motivations of people who take these hoaxes, hook, line, and sinkers. And we really show that, what's really going on in their minds. I mean, that's what was happening this weekend, right? Down in Washington, D.C., the kids from Covington Catholic High School were standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial waiting for a bus to come by. Bunch of the fellas from the Black Israelites. You know what? I don't want to hear any more about these Black Israelites. These guys are psychos. They're not bigger. They don't represent anything bigger than they really are. They're just psychos. Anyway, the Black Israelites were calling them sexual innuendos, calling them racist slurs, the whole thing. And the Indian dude walked up to him with his tom-tom, bum, 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 that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, you guys remember this, all of a sudden, every reporter in the country, every mainstream legacy media outlet in the country were reporting that these big bad white kids were throwing racial slurs at this poor little old Indian dude. Oh, by the way, he's a Vietnam vet too. And they were mocking him, scorning and threatening him. They were telling him we're going to build a wall. It was the worst thing imaginable. Reporters, all the New York Times, Washington Post, Atlantic, Esquire, Hollywood, Jamie Lee Curtis, directors. We were getting all these tweets, all these comments, all these YouTube videos. People were saying the worst possible things. Imagine how they were wishing violence on these kids. This was all on this, by the way, all this was on video right from the beginning. And the worst part to me were people from the National Review and other conservative commentators, people I have an enormous amount of respect for, who jumped on this and condemned these kids for doing nothing but smiling. And it was all on the video. So in order for you to condemn this stuff, what you had to do was believe one person who watched the video. He put up a story, I think it was CNN, everybody jumped on it without even watching the video. If you watch the video, all you would see is some Indian dude walking up to a bunch of, this is the short version, the first version, the worst version. All you see the Indian dude walking up doing the tom-tom and the kids smiling. All of a sudden, we got hundreds of comments all over the internet, hundreds and thousands saying, oh, I know that smirk. Know that smirk anywhere. A smirk is white racism and white privilege. And so within 24 hours, everybody knew what it was, and everybody started walking their comments back. Very few people corrected it. They clarified, oh, I didn't get a chance to see the whole video. I'm sorry. And one guy from CNN actually said, oh yeah, everybody else was doing it too. God, when you go to a Catholic school, nobody says that after first grade. Everybody knows better. Reporter after reporter after reporter, they could not do the virtue display quickly enough, exposing to them, exposing to us. I mean, this crazy thing they have going on. I mean, these kids had 3 strikes against them. They were white, they were Catholic, and they were Trump people. Well, 4 strikes. They wore Trump hats and they were anti-abortion. Good Lord, those are like 4 of the most evil things you can be on this planet. Ask a reporter about that and they'll say, no, I didn't notice any of those things. It's just a coincidence. When you think about it, when you're in the middle of it, it's kind of like, well, it's just happening. But when you're at the end of it, as we are now, how does something that unvetted get into so many stories? Because the only thing a reporter's supposed to do is just tell us if something's true or not. My buddy, the great Willie Shields, reminds us that when people talk about gun control, Willie says when you call a cop, that's why you're calling him, because he has a gun. We were talking about Breaking Bad the other day. I just started watching this. I'm kind of enjoying it. But you came across that character, the lawyer, Saul, Better Call Saul. And the same thing for a lawyer. Like when you call a lawyer, the one thing you want out of a lawyer is for him to keep your confidences. Thank you, Michael Cohen. And the one thing you want from a reporter is just tell us what is true and false. But reporters, I don't know what happened. I don't know how they lost. Well, I do know, but it's not that interesting. So many reporters have lost sight of the true and false because they're pursuing the good and the bad. The good and the bad is actually pretty easy. True and false is way trickier. Anybody that ever writes for a daily newspaper, knows this. There's a lot of people out there, that's their sport, is to look at whatever you read and to look for some way to interpret it that gives a totally different interpretation than what you wrote. And oftentimes it's a very reasonable interpretation. And so we need reporters just to tell us what is true and false. It's very tricky, and reporters don't seem overly enamored of that now. All they want to, this Trump stuff they're going through in D.C. Anyway, now it infected their other judgment with this business at the steps of the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, and how eagerly they fell for a big fat hoax. One of these, I'm sorry to keep saying this, but I actually have the notes and I have it all charted out. A book I want to write on my 25 favorite hoaxes. When I think of that, I think of 2, of course. Think of the one over in Bridgeport, the Bridgeport Police Department. Does anybody remember that one? I got a call on this this came out about a year or so ago, but I got a call on it a year before it came out. Because there was a story in Bridgeport and it said, all these black police officers are getting letters, pieces of paper in their police headquarters inbox saying, dropping all sorts of racial expletives and N-bombs and all that kind of bombs. You're not welcome here. Get out of here. Blah, 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 blah. And, they have a Black Police Officers Association in that town. They got lawyers and they had big press conferences and the lawyers everybody was talking in sorrow rather than anger. Can't believe this would be happening in Bridgeport. Well, I got a call 2 weeks later from a guy connected to the department going, hey, Colin, everybody knows this. We know now it's a hoax. Listen, I was interested in it, but I wasn't going to go with a story with only one source, and I wasn't going to go up to Bridgeport and spend the rest of my life on the story. I was just saying, listen, I'm just going to I'm just going to wait for it to fall out, because the way local people and national people report these stories, nobody's really going to jump on it anyway. So I'm going to wait for it to happen. Sure enough, 6, 8, 12 months later, the story came out and it said, oh yeah, sorry about that. You know, all that stuff. All those stories that were out a year ago. This was a national story about the black police officers of Bridgeport under attack. National magazines, TV. They finally figured out it was the head of the union who did it. A couple of union members of the Black Police Officers Union. They had them on cameras. They were using the office equipment in the police headquarters to print these letters out. One big hoax, top to bottom. And when that happened, everybody just kind of went, oh, yeah, okay, well, yeah, we'll get around to writing about it someday. But really, it should be part of every reporter's arsenal that when you come upon a hoax, we do now have to ask every single time, what are the chances this hoax is staged? What are the chances this claim of white racism is one big fat lie, part of the greatest lie of our generation, the hoax of black victimization? What are the chances of that? What are the chances of somebody asking that? Slim. People don't ask those questions. And what about that story up in Albany? I think it was Albany State was the college. The three black women on a bus. They got off the bus, they called 911, said 20 white kids just beat them up, and they started crying and turning on the faucet. And you didn't get a cop there quick. They're going to go to the press and make a big deal about this. Then all of a sudden, we didn't hear much about it. A month later, they released all the tapes. This was a national story. Hillary tweeted about it. The college professor was on national TV talking about it because it happened on the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There were National Football League players tweeting about it. This was a thing. And they had rallies. The three victims, air quotes, up on stage, doing the crocodile tears, talking to the, hundreds of people with signs and candlelight vigils. We're better than this. We're better. Black Lives Matter. A month later, the videos came out. Audio and video. These buses have like 12 cameras on them. Everybody saw what happened. The girls attacked the white students. And here's what was interesting to me, funny to me. Here's a little news you can use. When you dial 911, the cops are picking up the phone. The operator is picking up the phone and listening before they say hello, 911, or whatever they say. And they might even simulate a dial tone or a ringing on your phone to make you think there's nobody listening that they haven't picked up yet. That's what they did in Albany. And we have recordings of these three girls laughing, joking, talking about all the stuff they just did to the white kids in there, who punched who had fun with this and that. And then as soon as the operator picked up their 911 call, they switched from, you could hear this, they switched from happy-go-lucky to turn on the faucets of fake pain and outrage at this level of white racism directed at them because they're black students. It was a hoax. Everybody knew it was a hoax. But when they went to trial, the jury didn't even convict them of most of the stuff. They all got slapped on the wrists. And then they came out, they left the court when they had a little press conference outside, and one pled guilty, two went to trial. They were outside reminding everybody that the only reason all this is happening is because of the white racism that exists on that campus. And the lawyers were going, oh yeah, that's 100% true. And the girls were going, oh yeah, that's 100% true. They got caught on video doing a hoax, and they came out, and after everything was exposed, they came out and tried to pretend their hoax was still real. And so now, this is one after another. boy, these things, that's one thing about, thinking about all these stories. I can't think of them all at once, but when I start thinking of one, it does a little domino. I mean, another favorite one was, how many politicians and professors have we seen? All on video, but they weren't aware of it. I'm thinking of a state legislator in Texas. They're talking about this. They were just talking about Sandra Bland. Remember, Hillary said about Sandra Bland, she went to jail and died in jail in Texas for no reason whatsoever. And so they're talking about Sandra Bland in the state legislature, and this black legislator gets in there and goes, "Yeah, I've experienced this personally. I experienced it yesterday when I got pulled over for a traffic ticket. The officer was very disrespectful and racist." Then we see the video. We hear the video. We hear the conversation. The only reason the guy got stopped is because he blew by the cop on the freeway doing 95 miles an hour. Wham! State tags. Cop pulled him over, and he goes, "Oh, excuse me, sir. Did the whole cop perfectly professional, courteous thing." And the guy identified himself as a state legislator pretty early on in the conversation. They all figured it out. The cop just gave him a warning. Turns out that was like his 5th warning for speeding. And as he gives him the warning, basically he was saying, "Hey, man, you got to knock the speeding off because, this can't happen." The 5th warning this guy got for speeding. And he stood up in the legislature the next day and said what a racist that cop was, because the cop told him to slow down and he didn't like the way that happened. And we've documented that with probably a dozen black public officials. We've documented it with a damn cop. Black cop. He was doing something in a neighboring town, and the other cop came over, and the cop just wouldn't respond to the other cop's lawful commands. And soon it became all about racism. They fired that black cop for that. One of the people one of the red flags, one of the surefire indicators of a hoax is when Shaun King gets involved in something. No investigation. Somebody says something. Shaun King takes it hook, line, and sinker because he's desperate. If you're a white guy pretending to be a black guy, you better not have any hesitation when some crazy black person stands up and says, "Oh yeah, I am a victim of racism at the hands of those racist cops." Shaun King cannot afford to hesitate because he has a very fragile position as being the white guy who pretends he's a black guy. Everybody knows he's a white guy. Nobody's kidding themselves. Why don't we look at that video of Shaun King? Why don't we run 3 or 4 more videos, some with me talking, some not, as news accounts, Shaun Kings and fake nooses and fake graffiti and fake this and fake that. Why don't we just run them together? These are the last couple months. There's a lot more than what's here. But really, when we hear all these accounts, news accounts, I think the one thing that we should be thinking of is, doesn't this happen often enough where now the reporters should be on their guard, on extra vigilant, asking more questions? Instead, they ask fewer. America's biggest, most successful hoaxer is back in the news. I am, of course, talking about Shaun King, the white dude who pretends he's a black dude, and he gets 3 million followers on Twitter and other social media. Well, for some reason, everybody's so eager to follow him. Everybody's so eager to believe everything he says. And when he posted this, the world was set on fire for a few hours yesterday, where he talked about this black woman down in Texas. She was kidnapped. She was raped. And, what are we going to do about it? Well, just like Shaun King, the white dude pretending to be a black dude is a complete hoax, so is this story.
There has been no apology from the woman who falsely accused a DPS trooper of rape or the activist who perpetuated a public attack on that trooper. Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Hayes.
And I'm Steve Eager. It's 9 o'clock. That activist, Shaun King, who claims he's a journalist, crucified the trooper in a social media campaign to millions, instead is now claiming he is a victim of false information, even though he didn't bother to fact-check anything he reported about the claim.
2.5 hours of body camera video of the woman's arrest for DWI shows the woman's claims of being sexually assaulted are false. Fox 4's Alex Boyer is in Waxahachie tonight, where this all started on Sunday. Alex.
That's right, and the Ellis County District Attorney says he is disgusted by the false claims made against that DPS trooper, adding that Dixon Cole could face additional charges if it is determined that she did indeed file a false police report. Now, the fallout from this has been widespread, affecting DPS, the trooper who made the arrest, as well as a trooper not even involved in this case.
This has been a maddening and dumbfounding experience.
Ellis County District Attorney Patrick Wilson is fuming over the false allegations made against the DPS trooper Sunday. Criminal claims spread worldwide when civil rights activist Shaun King, who has nearly 3 million followers on social media, posted on Twitter claiming these are the facts about a North Texas woman being sexually assaulted by a trooper during a DWI arrest.
Over the next 48 to 72 hours, to see these allegations persist and grow against this poor trooper were just made me heartsick for the guy and for the state of the world, to be perfectly honest with you.
The claims of sexual assault by the DPS trooper stem from this traffic stop along U.S. Highway 287 and Interstate 35 near a car dealership.
Where are you coming from tonight, ma'am?
Downtown.
The woman in the body cam video, which was released by DPS Tuesday night, is 37-year-old Sharita Dixon Cole. She was pulled over on suspicion of driving drunk. The trooper finds what he believes is a roadie.
That's alcohol right there.
You also see the trooper remove what appears to be liquor and wine bottles from the backseat of her car. After conducting sobriety tests, the trooper places Dixon Cole under arrest.
All right, ma'am. You're being placed under arrest for driving while intoxicated. I need you to keep facing towards my car.
The trooper then places Dixon Cole in the passenger seat of his cruiser. Minutes later, Dixon Cole's fiancé arrives on scene. The trooper explains the situation.
She's under arrest for an intoxication offense. I'll let her get out and speak to you for a minute.
The viral post, written by King and shared by her attorney Lee Merritt, had claimed Dixon Cole was sexually assaulted when she was initially placed in the cruiser and again after speaking to her fiancé. King's post said Merritt got the information from Dixon Cole's family. The trooper's body cam, which captured the entire 2-hour incident, shows that never happened.
It damages the credibility of people who I think are appropriately trying to make police accountable.
After reviewing the body cam video, Dixon Cole's attorney issued a written apology saying it is deeply troubling when innocent parties are falsely accused, and he is sorry for any trouble these claims may have caused.
I know it's been very traumatic for him and his family. I also, it's been reported to me that a trooper, an unrelated trooper who shares the same last name in a different part of the state, received death threats.
That trooper lives in Waco and has been targeted by people believing King and Dixon Cole's claims. So much so, he hired an attorney who wrote a letter to Merritt and King saying his client has endured substantial harassment and threats, and he even had to make a request for protection. And that initial post that made the false accusations has since been taken down. Now, Shaun King, the guy who started this all, issued a long response on Twitter this afternoon after watching that body cam video. He says, in part, Sharita Dixon Cole is not a victim. She victimized us. She victimized the man she falsely accused, and she victimized those who stood up for her, believing that what she had experienced was the worst crimes. He stopped short, however, of apologizing. He didn't apologize, Heather and Steve, for anything.
So Monday morning, people in Jackson, Mississippi, well, we've been there plenty of times. People in Jackson, Mississippi woke up to find nooses and signs all over the state capitol property. This was the day before the big Senate election in Mississippi, right? Where for the last couple of months, they've been trying to convince the world that this white woman running for the Senate in Mississippi is a big red racist. And we know that because she's white. But it didn't take long for news of this story to spread, from the Washington Post to the San Francisco Examiner to a newspaper for English-speaking people in Japan. Headlines, pictures. Someone hung nooses at Mississippi Capitol on eve of racially charged U.S. Senate runoff. Donna Brazile got into the act over Twitter. HuffPo Voices got into the act, reminding everybody how much this sucks. And everybody was pretty much doing their full-on virtue display, full-on accusing the white racists of Mississippi, and they're everywhere, coming out of everywhere to post these signs in order to presumably remind all the other white racists that they have to vote for that white chick running for Senate. Yeah, that's how it works, right? So anyway, this story was going crazy and people were trying to make a lot out of it. But finally, after the signs were up for like 12 hours or so, somebody looked around and said, oh yeah, I think I know who did it. It was a bunch of Democrats who did it. They left all these signs out there saying why they did it, who they were, why they did it. Wow. Everybody took this thing so fast. They wanted it to be true so badly. Let's take a look at this news report, get some examples of that.
A disturbing discovery this morning at the Mississippi State Capitol. The Associated Press is now reporting that a total of 7 nooses were found hanging from trees along with hate signs. One specifically referring to Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith's apology for her controversial hanging comment. 3 on your side, Reggie Marion has reaction.
Hate, disorder, and misunderstanding. That's how John Brown Jr. describes the culture that we live in today.
So when you see stuff like this, you really have to take a step back and really consider really praying for our country and our residents here that embrace not loving their fellow man.
Brown is visiting Jackson for the holidays. He wasn't surprised to find out 2 nooses and hate signs were found hanging from trees at the state capitol Monday.
And it's a generational thing. It's a generational seed that comes up in people's heart.
Capitol Police quickly snatched down the nooses and signs. Police are now looking over surveillance video to find the person responsible.
It's unfortunate that there is still some of that mindset that's going on in 2018 here in our state. Hopefully the Capitol Police will be able to put this together and find out more about what's going on.
Just because someone has another view than yours, you do not cut them off and have hate speech or think that God is Republican or Democrat.
In Jackson, Reggie Marion, 3 on your side.
Governor Phil Bryant released a statement about the nooses saying, quote, the perpetrators of this act will be identified and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I have contacted the Department of Public Safety and the Federal Bureau of Investigation for assistance.
So the Daily Wire came out with a story telling people the origin of the nooses, the origin of the sign, saying it was not a bunch of white racists, it was a bunch of Democrats.
Please, sir, I want some more.
The other media have not followed up on this story yet. They're probably too busy out there turning over rocks, looking for 30-year-old pieces of graffiti that they can blame on Rick Perry. Another hoax on another college campus, this one in the Baltimore area, Goucher College. But watch this news story. Watch how long it takes them to tell us that it was a black student sending racially threatening notes to other black students trying to pretend he was a white student. Talk about burying the lead.
That's right. Police say the suspect is a student here and that he targeted individual students by name and room number and included his own. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. This student protest on Goucher campus followed a November 14th incident where racially charged graffiti targeting specific students appeared on a bathroom wall in a residence hall. A second similar incident occurred yesterday, and just hours later, police arrested this man, 21-year-old Finn Arthur, a Goucher student from Brunswick, Maine, who was African American and included his own name in the threats written on the wall.
I'm really happy they did find someone.
The administration wants strong action.
We are disappointed that the Baltimore County Police have not yet charged the suspect with a hate crime, and we strongly encourage the state attorney's office to do so.
Arthur is currently charged with 2 counts of malicious destruction of property. Javante Newman, who knows Arthur, says he was surprised by the arrest.
Definitely was caught off guard a little bit, but you really never know who's going to do what.
Same pattern as the others. Small college, lots of virtue display, lots of hand-wringing, lots of protesting, lots of talking about the greatest lie of our generation. Boy, they sure got a lot of jokers on the campus of Kansas State University out in Manhattan, Kansas. You guys must remember last year when one of the fellas said, "Hey, y'all, white people came and messed up my car and drew all these bad words on my car, y'all. It's racism." Shaking my head, 2017. President of the university heard about that. He shut the campus down. No classes, no nothing. Big rally, Kansas State University.
There's been a lot of tension on campus, so I think this is a good chance for the students to actually come together. I'm hoping that they'll really kind of not just give the phrase of, we'll come together and from here on out we'll be a stronger campus. We've heard those kind of things before. I want to hear more specifically maybe what some of their actions, like what the university is going to do.
I just hate that it took this long for something like this to happen. But now that it's happening, I feel like we need to work with each other and try to create this family that, K-State is trying to demonstrate.
Oh, and for those of you not really familiar with post-hoax, whoops, I just gave it away, post-racist event rituals, they're singing the Black National Anthem there.
I would be lying if I said that I didn't have kind of a negative reaction, that maybe this was a little too late.
Today marks a very important time here at K-State and in Manhattan, Kansas. In this very moment, today, we all have the opportunity to make a decision. We are going to uphold what it means to be a family. It starts with loving one another as one has loved us.
Here are the questions. What do you want Kansas State to look like going forward? What is the future that you want for our university, for our community? Then the hardest of all, what will you commit to doing to make it that
A couple days later, they found out the whole thing was a fraud. One of the fellas painted that stuff on his own car for crazy, sick, twisted reasons of his own. Not a damn person came out and apologized for it. Crazy thing is, a couple days later, the same thing happened. The Jewish kids on campus put up some kind of display, some kind of religious display. A weather event came by, some wind, I guess, blew it over. For a couple days, everybody was going, oh, now the white people, they've stopped beating up black people. Now they're targeting Jewish people. It turned out to be just some wind blew it over. And now we come to this year, as if last year never happened. One of the fellas at Kansas State University starts going on Twitter, posting pictures of a sign somebody put on his door. Lots of racial epithets, lots of bad business. And he just kept tweeting over and over and over how he's not going to let that stop him, damn it. 2018. And by the way, don't forget to vote today. Okay, so you know the end of the story, right? Oh yeah, the dude that was tweeting about what a hero he is for confronting racism. Yeah, he's the one who put up the note at Kansas State University. over and over and over and over in a short period of time. And every time it happens, the entire campus just grabs it and takes it hook, line, and sinker. You guys at Kansas State ever remember reading Charlie Brown, Peanuts? You guys ever remember Lucy holding the football and what she did every damn time? When Charlie came up to kick it, she'd pull the ball away. Charlie never learned. Charlie had an excuse. He was a cartoon character. Two-dimensional.
Please, sir. I want some more.
Put there for our amusement. You guys don't have an excuse. That makes you dumber than Charlie Brown. We are seeing a ton of these videos lately. And when somebody gets stopped by a cop, has an encounter with a cop, and all of a sudden they're making up all these fairy tales about what happened to them. They're saying just what happened to them was just like what happened to Emmett Till, Sandra Bland, Freddie Gray. You're only picking on me because I'm black. Oh, I just met that cop and he was terrible. He threatened to drag me out of the car. He said all sorts of bad things to me. Here's the latest down in South Carolina, where the president of the local NAACP completely manufactures, parentheses, that means he's lying his ass off, about a relatively innocuous and simple and clean encounter with the police. Watch this video here. It's going to take about 2 minutes. Then just watch for any hint of anything bad happening, anything out of the ordinary, anything that cop should be ashamed of. And then we're gonna look at his Facebook posting of this minister, the minister, and we're going to see what the minister said about the exact same encounter on Facebook.
Department, yes, sir. Got your license, registration, proof of insurance on you?
I'm losing it.
Okay, that's fine. Go right ahead. Are you the owner of the motor vehicle?
Yes, sir. I just transferred these.
You just transferred? Okay. What's your name?
Jamie Moultrie.
Okay. You got your driver's license on you, Mr. Jamie? The reason why I'm coming in contact with you is whenever you took the left right here, you didn't signal. Okay, that's the only reason why I'm coming in contact with you, okay? Sit tight for me, okay?
Okay, so the cop goes back to his car, runs the plates, runs the plate, runs the license, runs the driver's license. Nothing really happens. Then he just goes on back to the car and sends the dude on his merry way.
All right, Ms. Moultrie, here you go, okay? Registration. Try not to drive the car no more until you get the proper documentation, because this registration has to come back to 1992, okay, GMC truck. And it's even in the system as that too, but what I'm saying, you got to have the proper registration and everything, and insurance and all that stuff to actually indicate that that plate comes back to this motor vehicle, okay? Because when I run the plate, it's still coming back to this. It's not coming back to your car.
Okay, I understand that, but look, I just bought the car the other day. I switched the tags.
Well, you probably need to go to the DMV and ask them how come it's not registered in the state of South Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles. It's still coming back to that truck.
I understand that, but this is what I'm telling you. I switched the tags from the truck to the car. They told me at DMV, the dealer put that on there. They showed that the tags going to be transferred.
Right.
And all I need to do is keep this registration in there and this bill of sale.
They told you wrong. You got to have the proper documentation in your motor vehicle that actually matches the car that you're operating on South Carolina highways in order for it to actually be legal to operate on South Carolina highways. They told you wrong, okay?
All right.
All right. Other than that, there's your driver's license. Just make sure you wear your seatbelt at all times while operating motor vehicle on South Carolina highways and drive safe, okay?
But that's not really what really happened, is it? That's not what Minister J.J. Moultrie said happened. He's the guy in the car. Let's listen to his version of what happened. We just saw what happened. Let's listen to his version that he posted on Facebook. Tonight, I was racially profiled by a Timminsville officer because I was driving a Mercedes-Benz and going home in a nice neighborhood. But tomorrow they will hear from me. And he tagged a lot of people that he wanted to see his Facebook posting. So here's how Reverend J.J. Moultrie just imagined this encounter went. Hello, officer. How can I help you? That's the Reverend. The cop says, I'm stopping you because you failed to put on a turn signal. And do you have any drugs in the car? The Reverend says, Sir, how would you know if I used my turn signal when you was approaching me as I turned? And is there any drugs in your car? Cop, license or registration? Minister, can I take my seatbelt off and get it? Cop, sure. Minister, as I open the glove box, Sir, this is the new car I just purchased, and all I have is a bill of sale, insurance card, and registration from the car I am transferring tags. Cop, okay, where you work, and who is this, and why are you in this neighborhood? Minister, Sir, I am a pastor, and I live in this house on the left. Cop, and I guess I am Bill Gates. Minister, Sir, what's the problem? Cop, I ask who car for the last time and why you in this neighborhood? Minister, I told you for the last time who car and where I live. As my neighborhood starts to come out of their house. Minister, by the way, can I speak to your supervisor? Officer walks away with my information. When he returned, he said, did you know your tags come back to another vehicle? Minister, I just explained this to you. Cop, you need to park this vehicle and never drive it again till you get this straight with DMV. Minister, Sir, I have purchased multiple vehicles and have never heard this. Now, officer and I start fussing because I said, well, I will be driving my car, sir, anytime I want. Cop, I'm warning you not to drive this car until tags get straight, and I am doing you a favor. And just know I am doing you a favor tonight, not taking you to jail or writing you a ticket. Minister, you might be doing yourself a favor, but you're certainly not doing me a favor. Then it goes on, and then the guy adds, the minister says, this officer thought he had some drugs or something, because since when two patrol cars stop one car or turn on a turn signal issue? Guess I can't be a pastor and can't drive a Mercedes-Benz and live in a nice neighborhood. Well, as president of the Timminsville NAACP, he stopped the wrong car tonight. Because someone needs to answer for this behavior. And this officer's something I can't make out. It's weird. In the comments to this article in South Carolina, somebody posted a picture of the dude, and they posted a picture of his jail record. In 2016, he was arrested for defrauding a hotel keeper. So I don't know what that's all about. Maybe the minister has an explanation of that as well. But isn't this weird? I mean, first of all, you're saying all these things that aren't true. Second of all, you don't even have the presence of mind to know you're on a body cam. And when you say these things in the morning, the cops are just going to release the body cam video in the afternoon. Come on, criminals. I thought criminals were a little bit smarter than that. I thought con men were a little bit smarter than that. Don't con men like Reverend Al Sharpton, at least they have the good sense not to lie their butts off when there's a camera right in front of their face? So one of these things, these hoaxes do expose is, of course, this black on white hostility, this black on white stuff that people don't really care to talk about that much except for Jesse Lee Peterson. And everybody who follows these podcasts and my books owes a great debt, as I do, to Jesse Lee Peterson for calmly and forcefully telling the truth about this black on white hostility and violence in this country, things that we try to document around here. But now it's getting to the point where there's too much of it happening. This black hostility is just getting mainstream, so much so that I don't think anybody's noticing it anymore. Just the other night, I heard there was a football player named Marshawn Lynch. I think he plays for the Raiders. He used to play, I forget. I don't even know who he played for. Maybe the 49ers, maybe the Seattle Seahawks. In the world of professional football, he's a big dog. He's a big man. Very good at his defensive position. Very famous. Anyway, so Bill Maher gets him on his show. I guess he goes on Bill Maher's show every couple of years basically to say the same thing, which is white people suck. But they suck for a different reason today than they did a year ago, a year before that. This time, the reason white people suck is for two reasons. One, Bill Maher's going to hear, you're going to hear this clip. He's going to open a clip up with a discussion of Donald Trump. Marshawn Lynch is going to reply to that. But then Marshawn Lynch is going to say, he's going to tell us what is the worst thing that could happen to a black neighborhood.
About you. He said that you were pretty much unpatriotic because you were taking a knee. What is your answer to that?
I mean, you know, that motherfucker say a lot of shit, but at the end of the day, like, you call me unpatriotic, but I mean, you know, you come to my neighborhood where I'm from, and you know, you'll see me take the shirt off my back and give it to someone in less need. I mean, what would you call that?
No, I know you do a lot for your neighborhood. You wanted to play in Oakland again to be an example for the kids, to see someone who could rise that far up. And you do a lot against gentrification. Tell us what that is, first of all, for people who don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, it's basically when, for me, a lot of white people come move into the hood and kick everybody out that's there.
That's what it is, yes.
I mean, that's I mean, shit, basically that's how it go. I mean, and I've been a witness of it since, you know, I was a small jitterbug. So, I mean, now that I'm growing up and now I'm seeing and I understand it a little more.
But what do you do to combat that?
Well, now, I mean, you know, I got into with banging my head against people. I had the opportunity to make a couple dollars. So therefore I started to go and, you know, buy up some real estate in, you know, the area where I grew up at in order to give people opportunity, you know, for housing. And
you're a man of the people.
And I guess you could say that.
So that's Marshawn Lynch reminding us that the worst thing that could happen at a black neighborhood is for white people to move in, because white people kick black people out. Boy, why is it that every single image we get about black people in the local news is always black people are being victimized for some reason? Victimized by white racism. Now they're being victimized by these hippies and these young couples who want to move into a marginal neighborhood, a black neighborhood, because they're deaf, dumb, and blind is the reason they moved there. And they want to try to make something out of themselves. They want to fix up the neighborhood. They want to get rid of crime. They want to sit on juries where a jury holds people accountable. We did a big story out of that when the New York Post went out and found all these lawyers and cops and said, what's going on with the jury pool now that we have a lot more gentrifiers here? And the defense attorneys were going, no, it's awful. The defense attorneys in places like Brooklyn and the Bronx, they count on what they call Bronx juries, where black juries tend not to convict on the charges presented. They either find them not guilty or they convict on a lesser charge. So all these white people are moving into Oakland, and this is like the worst thing Marshawn Lynch thinks can happen in his town. That's it. They're kicking black people out. Yeah, they pull the moving van up and they start pointing to houses on the block. Hey, you got to go. You got to go. You got to go. Wow. Of course, Bill Maher he couldn't get enough of that, right? It's like, oh, that's right, gentrification is bad. I mean, I don't like to state the obvious around here. You guys don't need my podcast to help you see the obvious. But the obvious thing in this case is that Bill Maher does not live near any black people. You look on the pages of newspapers, he's squiring around some young black lady from time to time. But Bill Maher is living in a highly secure environment behind gates, behind walls, behind security guards who carry guns. There are not any random black people in his life. And so, he's all okay with, talking about that gentrification with the fellas. He's down with the cause. Well, maybe someday Bill will find out whether the cause is down with him. Speaking of causes, let's take a little interlude to talk about my favorite cause, good old Colin. Let me see. I think we've got some new cups out there. I'm getting ready to put a new coffee cup out there and a t-shirt. One that says Chocolate City, getting ready to put one out that says Fellas, getting ready to put out another one called Lovely Ladies. But until then, you can get the other ones everybody likes. T-shirts and coffee cups with different designs for denial, deceit, delusion. One that says White Girl Bleed a Lot. So we got a lot of cool stuff there, and that's a good way to help support us if that's what you want to do. It's amazing, like if you have something like this at your house, what happens? Like I just got off the phone with an old friend of mine in San Diego, and the plumber came over her house, and she had one of my books on her shelf. The plumber comes in and goes, the plumber asked her how she liked that book, and she goes, "Yeah, well, I know Colin, I've known him for a long time." And of course, the plumber started describing. It's actually one of my old girlfriends. The plumber started describing good old Colin in ways that were unfamiliar to this young lady, which is, yeah, Colin's the greatest guy in the world. Way too complimentary, right? But the only reason that happened is because she had a book, and she had one of my White Girl Bleed a Lot cups sitting out there on her shelf. I've heard that story a bunch of times, actually. We're just two strangers, maybe a delivery guy or a service guy, or it's amazing how many of us there are. Now, often when I go out in public, I am recognized in faraway places from good old Wilmington. And so anyway, that's a good way to help. Other people know a great way to help is, people send me stories all the time. People share the stories. They like them. They comment on them. All that stuff is really important. The algorithms want to know who's engaging. That's how they measure engagement. That's how they measure who gets to see the stories in your timeline, in your Twitter timeline, your Facebook timeline, your Minds.com timeline. Ditto for email. If you're not on my email, get over to ColinFlaherty.com, sign up for my email. That's the most important thing you could do. That's the most important contribution you can make so we can stay in touch. Most of you probably know the drama we've had around here with YouTube kicking us off, and Facebook suspending me for 30 days at a time, and Twitter spanking me every once in a while. So we're on a very tight rope. And whatever happens to that tightrope, if you and I have to stay in touch, because I'm going to keep making videos, keep making podcasts, keep writing articles, but you and I have to stay in touch. Man, every day I get a couple of these emails going, "Hey, Colin, haven't seen you on YouTube for about a year. What happened to you? Why'd you stop making videos?" We never stopped. But because that person was not on my email list, they didn't get the message. Oh yeah, you might want to go to your email thing and make sure my email is in there listed as somebody that you want to receive email from, because I use a program called MailChimp to send out my emails. Sometimes it's a good program. It's nice and easy to use, very powerful. But sometimes your email program that receives these emails will recognize this as a MailChimp sending thing, and they'll siphon it off to the junk mail. We don't want that to happen. Not the good old Collins emails. All the stories we do here, we're all talking about just one incident here, an incident there, but they all are meant to illustrate these patterns. And so when we do a story of 5 hoaxes, that's not to say, oh, we've had 5 hoaxes in the last 27 years. That's a lot. No, that means 5 hoaxes in the last couple months. Only 5 that I want to talk about. There's probably 20 more. And so that's in that spirit, I want to take you down to Bloomington, Indiana. I've never been to Bloomington, Indiana. I kind of think it's supposed to be one of those bucolic places in the middle of nowhere where parents send their kids off to college and think it's going to be a nice, safe place out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe that's what Skylar Maupin's parents thought when he moved to Bloomington and started. He and his friend went to school there. I think one went to Indiana University, another went to a tech school. Man, this is just one more case. A couple of white kids involved in a dope deal, whether selling or buying, with a couple of fellas, and the white kids end up dead. Say hello to Skylar Maupin of Bloomington, Indiana. Well, you really can't say hello to him now. He's dead. A couple of fellas in Fort Wayne, Indiana, heard that Skylar and one of his buddies were selling a little pot, little weed, little marijuana. They heard he had some cash around the house, a lot of cash. They heard he was an easy target, so they made the journey all the way from Fort Wayne to Bloomington. They said it was a drug deal gone bad, but it wasn't a drug deal at all. It was a robbery from the beginning.
Bloomington police tell us it's a drug deal gone bad here at Plato's Court and Knight's Landing in Bloomington. 2 people shot. 1 died.
The suspects had actually traveled to Bloomington from Fort Wayne with the intent to purchase marijuana from the victims.
Sometime during that trek, however, the 2, Jamarius Turnage, age 25, and Cleotis Collins Jr., age 24, decided, according to police, that they would steal it.
Now a couple of fellas are in jail. Another white kid is dead. Another day in the life of black-on-white crime, violence, and hostility in this country. Whenever I come across a story like Skylar, I can't help but think that maybe we could have reached Skylar. Maybe one of you could have reached Skylar. Maybe one of your friends could have reached Skylar had you shared a video with him or her. Or maybe somebody could have, it goes down. How many circles does it have to go down until we could have reached Skylar? We have a lot of people watching these videos and listening to these podcasts. A lot of people read my books. These are huge numbers. I mean, I think on my videos, I've had in the last 3 years, I've had 135 million views. That's a lot of videos. And a lot of that was YouTube when I was, rocketing up through the stratosphere on YouTube. And now between Minds.com and Facebook and Twitter and all the people who get more views, they post my videos on their YouTube channel. They get more views than I do on Minds, which is fine by me. So we're doing between 3 and 6 million views a month. Altogether, maybe even more. I know somebody in that audience somehow, some level, knew Skylar and his friend. They didn't know them well enough to say, hey, whatever business you think you're in, whatever little fairy tale you think you're involved in, whatever delusion you're taking to your fairy tale where you can just buy and sell pot with these fellows from the ghetto who are just measuring you ounce for ounce to see how much of a target you are, whether you should live or die, and how much money you have on you. I know, that's what people see in our videos all the time. I think we could have helped Skylar. God, think how that whole universe around that kid has now just collapsed. Think about how many lives are changed by this one act of homicide, robbery, and assault. Skylar's parents, his aunts and uncles, kids he went to school with. This is going to change a lot of lives for the worst. I think somehow all of us have to look around and go, we cannot unsee these videos. We cannot unhear these podcasts. We can't ignore it. We have to share it. We have to let people know what's out there. Even if we get some pushback, okay, maybe we'll save a life in a way we don't even know yet. Maybe we'll save a life, even if the price we pay is making a few black kids angry.